been a good friend of mine for many years. He did a piece in the New York Times Magazine, cover story on this organization, Ceasefire. And Alex and I have been looking to do something together, and it seemed like a perfect project to do. But in a deeper sense, for both of us, we both had people that we'd come to know quite well from our other work, for me with Hoop Dreams, who had been lost to the streets. You know, for those of you who've seen that film, Arthur Agee's father, one of the kids we followed, Bo, was murdered some years ago, as was Curtis's older brother, William's older brother, Curtis, the other kid we followed. And to see the devastating impact that those losses had on those families, and they were both very senseless situations, sticks with you. And it just seemed like it was a good time to try and refocus a little bit, maybe through a film, on this issue of urban violence, because I think there's this, we've had this sense that everything's been done that can be done. New York's been much more successful with this than Chicago, even though Chicago has made great strides. The murder rate in Chicago, I think, is 4 times New York's, and per capita. So anyway, we just felt like it was a good time maybe to try and refocus it in a film.
And so then Steve called you guys up and you had a meeting, and what was it like to meet Steve for the first time?
You don't even remember, do you?
I do remember. I ran from him. I ran from him. Honestly, I did. I didn't. In working with the project and dealing with the serious issues that we have going on on our streets and with our high-risk youth, and but knowing Alex and seeing the piece that he did and read it, and that was pretty cool. But then they're talking about bringing cameras extensively, staying, following us for hours at a time. So me dealing with media prior to the idea that Steve and Alex had, I was like, you know, this is just going to be another sad, fucked up story about the inner city youth, another black kid dead, and nothing's happening behind it. So I didn't want to have any parts of that. I didn't want to do anything to jeopardize also my effectiveness out in the community with the cameras and the white boys, and Alex wore police shoes, and you know, and so I ran from them, you know, because the stigma of camera and white man in Inglewood or in our ghettos is like either they're the police, the feds, DCFS, or something. It's about to happen, and it's not going to be good behind it. So it took me about maybe, it took a little while, maybe a couple of days for you to...
A couple of days?
Yeah, it was. It took about, he says 2 months. It didn't seem that long.
At least.
At least. But after just really feeling and getting to know Steve and Alex personally and meeting their families, and well, we didn't meet their families until later on in taping, but they talked about their families, you know. So if I gave them something, and for me to find out what a safe share is, if I give you something and you give me something just as equal that is really impactful emotionally, spiritually, then we can jam. So they would talk about their families as well as I would talk about my families, and the things that they were talking about was very personable. So I decided to move on and move a little forward with also some positive reinforcement from my supervisor down at the program telling me to let them in. So, and I did, and I'm very pleased and very happy that I did, because looking at the documentary from the standpoint as an audience, not as me being an employee or doing what I do, it has already been so impactable. People want to get involved, not to be a violence interrupter like Kobe and I. Well, Kobe's not a violence interrupter anymore. He's a TA, but to not get involved at the level or the magnitude that we're involved, but to get involved. And I'm starting to see that it's not as big, but it's, you know, we have to start somewhere. So I'm so grateful for that.
I don't know where to start. No, the director, T.O. Hardeman, kept telling us every week at our weekly meetings, because we have violence interrupted meet every week. He kept saying they're doing a documentary on ceasefire, yet something going on in the community called him. So he kept stressing this every week, so I just started calling them. And they was Johnny on the spot. I mean, but we had an understanding though, if they, we sat down first and talked about it and everything, so that we had to understand that if they come out to the community where we working at, and somebody don't want to get film or they got to leave, they had to understand they'll just leave, and we'll just stay and do our job is to mediate the conflict and work it out. So I kept calling them, and every time somebody called me with any type of problem or mediation, or I walk into a situation, a lot of times, I let y'all know, if y'all call me, I'm letting y'all know I got my film crew with me, so they with me now, so I hope
My
it's
film
okay.
crew.
So I
My film crew.
So I kept telling people that over and over. So once Steve and Alex started hanging in the community with me a lot, I say, man, y'all don't know who that's Steve James. He the one that did Hoop Dreams. He made Hoop Dreams. So that started opening up a little better. Alex, he wrote a book down, No Children Here, so it started working out, and they kept coming. There's, like I say, always on the spot, and they're doing some good filming.
One sad thing to note is that The Interrupters was snubbed by the Academy for the documentary shortlist. Amina, some harsh words were spoken by you last night at the awards.
Hey.
I was wondering, do we need to do an interruption between you and the Academy?
I think so. When do you want that to take place?
Well, we're here, you know.
Well, let's get them here.
Can somebody make a phone call?
Please.
What did you say last night?
So the question was, what did she say last night?
What did I say last
It's
night?
certainly not something I should
I
say.
think it was something to the effect that you were, Steve, you said that you were not angry at the Academy.
Well, I said last night I didn't care about the Oscars.
The
Because we had
Oscars.
it was such a great night.
And that's what they were saying to us all throughout once the Oscars, did that to us, right? And they were saying, oh, it's not a big thing, the Oscars, don't worry, it's just such a good thing, right? But the bottom line, come on, red carpet, who wouldn't want to be on Channel 2, walking the red carpet? But my thing is, on a much more serious note of who's in documentaries here, who's had an opportunity to work in. So another thing that has helped me, the relationship with Steve and Alex and Zach and Cartemperin, and to understand the intricate details in documentaries. I've always seen it from the Discovery Channel or Gangland or just different things that glorify the garbage in our communities that really don't give them the high-risk guys and girls, the really real life that you're gonna die out there, or you're gonna go to jail and die in jail. It just shows gangs, drugs, the glorification of that type of lifestyle, right? So in dealing with the documentaries going on film festivals and just seeing the heart that is put behind the energy between the filmmakers, the directors, and sometimes me as the boom. I was the broom. I handled the broom on some scenes with Kobe. I was the broom handler. I held the mic. They call it the boom. So anyway, in understanding about that, I'm gonna make. I did. I had to earn my keep here. But wait a second. So, and to understand the intricate details of, I watched Training Day and I watched Halle Berry, and I'm talking about the African American films, not just only documentaries. And Denzel Washington is a phenomenal gangster actor. And the Oscar that he got was for Training Day, and he was a dope fiend, mean, drug dealing ass of a cop, killing people, and he got an Oscar for that. And then we're looking at Halle Berry, my sister, that's very gangster in her craft too, but what she won an Oscar for was not in a really good light of what we would want to see. Yeah, relationships with interracial relationships, that's cool with me, but to the light that they put her in. And then when we look at Precious, we're looking at African American movies that got Oscars. Precious was dark. It was reality. It is reality. It wasn't closure to some of our young guys and girls out there that have been abused and different things like that. It left a whole big wound open for me when I watched it, molestation of a mother and abuse and just different issues, and it got an Academy. Color Purple didn't even get on the short list. You know, it didn't, you know, so I'm like, what the hell? What, the Academy is looking out, here it is, the documentary of the Interrupters that is showing what may seem hopelessness in the midst of hope. You know, because Kobe and Eddie and I and a whole team here in New York and across the United States and in Chicago, we're doing a job of restoration, if you will. And it just didn't get looked at. So that kind of pissed me off about really what it is. How does society of the Academy look at African Americans that do good things and you know, and that's what I said. And Michael Moore fought very hard. He tweeted and he blasted the Academy, and I'm very grateful that it has changed the rules for next year. But hell, it ain't gonna do nothing for us this year. You know, I'm gonna walk the red carpet tomorrow. You understand what I'm saying? Just real talk, we're real talking, right? Okay, so that's what I said last night.
Here, here. Steve, in this film, I mean, it's 2 hours long. You have a lot of characters that you're following. I mean, it's a pretty remarkable feat of editing, I think, that you're able to kind of sustain narrative arcs for as many characters as you do. I mean, it's like juggling, you know, I don't know, 12 chainsaws. And can you talk a little bit about how you crafted the narrative, and were there any characters or subjects that you filmed that you really loved but you couldn't include in the film?
Yes, absolutely. On that one, just to answer that one first, there's this great story that's on the DVD when that comes out in February. A great story, another great story with Kobe, with this kid named Stefan, who was living down the street from Kobe's grandma and was living in an abandoned home. And Kobe tried to reach out to this kid and help this kid. And you know, at one point in time when we were editing, it was strung through the narrative like the other stories, and we eventually, with great reluctance, took it out to shorten the movie and focus the movie more, because we understand it's a lot to ask of an audience to track all of these, you know, the 3 interrupters plus the stories of the people they're dealing with. And for me, we knew early on that it wasn't going to be a traditional arc of a narrative, which, you know, there are a lot of filmmakers here, apparently, from the hands that were raised. You know, that's always wonderful when you have that strong narrative to hang your film on. I mean, you know, it's a gift to have that. And I've been fortunate to have that in the past with films. But I think one of the things that was exciting about this film creatively for me as a filmmaker and as someone who edits my films is not having it and trying to capture organically and preserve organically the nature of what we witnessed in that year in the streets, and find a way to pull you through the film, hopefully, that is compelling and interesting and challenging, but that, you know, that it's still, even though it's not that strong narrative, it's a lot of mini narratives, if you will, that would hopefully work for an audience. And I don't know, I think as filmmakers, you know, the more films you make, you kind of look forward to situations where you don't have maybe everything that you'd want, and how can you solve it? And a lot of times the solving of those kinds of things, right, creatively, make a film more distinctive, make it more original, because you have to find a way. And I didn't feel like it was hard in this case, because we had such great subjects and great people and great stories. But it was still a creative challenge and a lot of fun.
Well, great. I think I'm going to open it up to questions right here, first hand.
Thank you for the film. I'm wondering how, if it has played and how it's playing, or how it was received in Inglewood and other communities within the Chicago area that you're aware of and that you know have the same violence issues.
Right, they've been playing good, like in Inglewood. We ain't got no theater right there in Inglewood, but up the street in Auburn Rusham, about 10 blocks from Inglewood, it stayed there about 11 weeks. It played on the west side where we got the ceasefire site also. It played there about 13 weeks. It played downtown at the Gene Cisco like 2 weeks straight. Then it came back a month later, 2 more weeks. So then it came back another week. So it's been playing great in Chicago. And it's been played in a lot of schools in Inglewood, high school, colleges, and all that. So it's been working their way through that. And a lot of people really been responding to it. I mean, they've been talking about it a lot, though.
Tell them about the bootleg.
And we got a lot of bootlegs in the community. A lot of them.
$5. A real good copy.
We want to make sure February 15th, y'all can go to the essentialreference.com and order y'all food. Y'all can order it right now. Do it now. Y'all got a lot of DVDs.
There are some great scenes from that. In fact, the version that played at Sunday was yours, almost a year ago now. It's like 40 minutes longer than this version. So you may want to self like select that you didn't have to get through that, but there were some great scenes in that version too, you know, in a way that are also. In the beginning of the film, we learned that you guys were very focused on stopping the crimes before they happened, and not so focused on, or at least it wasn't the intent of the organization to pull them out of this world. And you would kind of, jump in, and then, you would go back out in periphery. But I'm wondering, there are a few bright spots where with Flamo and with Lil Mikey, where you were actually able to pull them out of that world. And I'm wondering if there was anything that you think they shared in common, or if these were just kind of individual cases, or maybe these guys just got lucky. Like, how are you successful with those two? Or
Okay, good.
First of all, we got
Oh, no? Just, let me summarize this question just real quick. He was saying that at the beginning of the film, it seemed like more the mission and what they were doing is to mediate crisis and then move on. Mediate a situation, move on. But there were stories in the film where the interrupters did more than that, got involved, and you saw that, like Little Mikey and Flamo, and so you wondered if there were things that distinguished about.
Things that distinguish those two, or things that you were able to do with them that you weren't able to do with others that was successful?
Things that were the things that you guys were able to do with people like Lil Mikey and Flamo that you weren't able to do with others that caused them to be successful in making a change. Sorry.
I think mostly like with Flamo and Mikey and the rest of the people we work with. First of all, we spend a lot of time with these guys, so we established that good relationship with them. You got to spend time if you try to make them change. So with Flamo, I mean, he reached out to me though, and said he had a problem going. So anytime he called on me, so that means I got his attention right there. He called on me right then and said, "Toby, get over here. I got a situation." And I told him, "All right, I got the film crew with me now." So when I got over there, he looked, "Who is these guys right here?" I said, "I just told you they're coming with me, right?" So he tried to flip it. So he was on 10, really. I mean, so charged and all that. And I'm like, man, I'm going back and forth. I really, like, man, I ain't gonna waste my time with him. Sometimes doing this type of work, sometimes I feel like you want to give up on somebody. But it reminds me not to give up. So study working with Flamo, it happened, it took about, 5 to 6 months, didn't it? To really constantly go visit him. If I couldn't go there, send somebody else to visit him, take him out the neighborhood, keep spending time, and, get to really get him thinking about his sisters, his brothers, his kids. Doing this type of work, you have to be thinking on your feet at all times. With Lil Mikey, I think the difference was, Lil Mikey, he had just came home. He got rejected 12 times trying to find a job. And he was determined. But he kept saying, all while he was locked up, he robbed the people at the bar because he wanted to apologize. This is something he really wanted to do. So I seen him responding, and I said, all right, let me take Lil Mikey up, and he want to apologize. I started seeing him. So we went to the barber shop about 4 times to talk to the people. Like, man, this young man was right. They could be seen, like, no, they don't want to see him, they don't want to have nothing to do with him. It's a guy on the barber shop was saying that. So I was like, I'm giving up on it, man. I ain't in the world about, he gonna apologize. So Steve and Alex say, no, let us go in. So they went in without me and said, man, if y'all doing this because y'all want to let this young man apologize because y'all we got cameras in here, we'll leave the cameras out of here, but this young man want to do it. So once Steve talked to him, he apologized. But really, a lot of these guys who want to make a change in their life, they just need some guidance and some help, though, to try to get to their next level. And then remind us over and over, like I say, not to give up on them and keep spending time with us. But one thing we do, we not judge them, meaningless, the whole street by yourself. We don't judge nobody. We meet them where they are and just try to help them get to their next level.
that we deal with each conflict, maybe a crisis or a conflict, there's always a principle. So what a principle is maybe that one or that two, somebody that's the aggressor, that's the one that's all standing out, that catches our eye to say, look, we're going to grab them by the neck or the back of their shirt and say, please, right? So Mikey Flamo, you just saw Mikey and Flamo, but it's 150 of Mikey Flamo, Patricia, Stefan, that we deal with on a regular basis. And no, yes, they did get lucky, you know, they could be followed with us in the documentary. But there was also at the same time, because people said it was kind of hard to get, he didn't want to move you guys on this person, I'm with, that person, I'm with, Kobe's working with 3, 4, 5, 6 people. But at the time that we were filming and shooting, I had, you know, and Kobe we had a great deal. I'm not an outreach worker, I'm a violence interrupter, but outreach workers, have caseloads after we get the principals and we refer them to the outreach workers, right? But at the same time, before they're ready to go to the outreach workers, we still have to work with them to change their mindset, to get them to really heal on that crisis or that conflict. So we're dealing with, right today, I'm ready to get back to Chicago because I got so much work to do, but we deal with so many different high-risk youth and their families. Once we deal with the principals, we have to deal with their moms, aunts, uncles, grandmothers, these different things that's going on in there. Because violence is only just that, it's the symptomatic. You know, it's the result of a whole bunch of symptoms that's going on in their lives. So we deal with, you know, and it's sometimes hard to just grab hold to, as Mikey was open, Patricia, Flamo, sometimes they're not as open to say, okay, hey, I'm listening. They may listen and go back and do some other things, you know, but then as long as they're calling and they're answering the phones and the police haven't really gotten in the business of us to stop them, because once the police get in, we have to back out because police do what they do, and we want to get in on the front end and assist where we can. So we deal with a whole bunch of youth that we get to, you know, have just an impact on changing their mindsets on how they think about violence, on how to react. You know, ceasefire has stopped the shootings and killings. You know, back in the day, I'll say this real quick on my parents used to say, if someone hits you, you hit them back. And to me, that's a form of defense, that you're defending yourself. Me now, I have to tell our young youth, okay, fine, if someone hits you, you don't have to shoot to kill them because they hit you. They don't deserve to die because they hit you or they said something to you to violate what you feel is your manhood or womanhood. So it's a whole total different thing between if someone hits you, hit them back. These guys and girls are starting to shoot because someone hit them, looked at them the wrong way, put something on Facebook, put something on YouTube. So our goal is to be proactive and get in front of that, to get them to change their mindset on how they think about reacting to whatever it was that someone said.
More questions?
Right over here.
I was now sort of forgotten what I was going to ask because I was listening to what you said. So, I mean, do you think there's been an escalation in the type, I mean, you're alluding to it, the type of violence we're seeing? You know, whereas like when I was growing up, you know, maybe if there's going to be violence, it would be fisticuffs or at the very worst at night. But now people are going around shooting each other like it's nothing. Something's changed. I mean, do you feel that?
Before they answer, I'm just going to point out one important statistic which may make you feel better, which is that nationwide murders are down in America in virtually every American city from the height during the crack epidemic in America, okay? So back in the early 90s, when it was at its peak, murders in Chicago there were twice as many murders in Chicago as there are now. Now, the violence statistically in poor neighborhoods in Chicago is still, it's very located. Something like 90% of the murders in Chicago take place in 10 or 12% of the neighborhoods in Chicago. So I just wanted to throw those stats out there. There's a lot of reasons why those murders have come down. Certainly their work is part of it. There are other reasons, I think. There's, for good reasons, as well as loss of population in Chicago. The black population in Chicago has declined by 17% in the last decade. 20,000 residents less in Inglewood alone. So there's other reasons for the decline in murder rate as well. But
did you feel threatened? Did you have problems when you were filming?
Did we feel threatened? We never really felt any real threat, and I think that was entirely due to maybe a little stupidity, no, but due to these guys and Eddie, because we were with them, and that made a huge difference. I mean, I've had the experience of shooting in neighborhoods where I go into like these, where I go to film, and I'm not with an interrupter, and I mean, I've done it enough that I think I'm sensitive about how you deal with those situations to get people's permission to allow you to film. But I know that, but because of that, I know for a fact if I walked into Englewood without them and just got the camera out and started filming indiscriminately, it would not go over very well. And I would never, ever, ever get close to kind of situations we were able to film at all. So it's really them, and it's the trust people have in them, it's their reputations, both their former reputations and also their reputations for what they do now that make a difference, and we're with them. They see that there's a connection between us. They're not showing up in these communities acting all different because they're with us. And that makes a huge difference. Having said that, though, there were certain situations where it was a little dicey, and they were always looking out for our good. I mean, Amina mediated a situation with Alex that was just, it had nothing to do with what was going on in the moment. It had to do with a guy that had seen Alex give a speech months earlier that he didn't like, and he was kind of a threatening guy, and then Alex showed up in the neighborhood when we were filming the Darian Albert Vigil, and he zeroed in on Alex, and Amina had to deal with him. And with Eddie, we did some filming in his neighborhood of Little Village with some gang members, and after we filmed this one really great scene, which is not in the movie because of this, and not a DVD extra either because of this, the word got passed down from the top in that gang that Eddie was once a member of, that they didn't want us over there filming anymore with gang members, that it was too threatening to the control of that gang, and so we didn't, and he said you can't use that scene, and we didn't do that either. So.
Do you guys have anything to add? I think they've given me a high sign that we have to wrap up, and I know we have a lot of questions left. I should point out that when we retire from this theater, we will reconvene at the Caravas Place lounge, and I've got little slips of paper with directions on how to get. It's just a block away around the corner. So see me, and I'll give you a strip of paper to let you know where we're going to be to continue the conversation. So do you guys have any last words to add to?
Thank you, guys.
I just want to tell y'all, please spread the word and let everybody know to get the Interrupters movie.
It is going to be on Frontline on Valentine's Day, believe it or not.
And for those that are really, really, really inspired by this documentary, not just because of the entities that are in it, because of the issue that is so gravely needed to be addressed at every level, may it be at the school level, may it be at the elected legislature level. We need to have a voice, not just mine. This for me, this documentary is a beginning of, really the continuance of a movement that has slowly started to break apart. So now it can start back with the fiber and the strong thread of concern and consideration and people having a conscience of what's happening to our youth. in the inner city, not just in Chicago, but here in New York, all over the United States. So thank you guys so very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Because I think I'd be remiss, we got a crowd here from New York, where you guys got to know that we have interrupters in Harlem, Queens, Yonkers, Mount Vernon, Albany, and so we do have sites here that are doing the same work that you see Cody and Amina do on the screen, so I just thought.
Yes.